Hello again, Bravites, and welcome to another edition of Movie Reviews with yours truly, Toya. And on today, I am reviewing Dolemite is my name. That's why I got my tilted brim on today. The movie is featuring none other than the star himself, legend, Eddie Murphy, and the movie is on Netflix, so you still have time to see it. I believe it's only been out about a week and a half at this point. So there's still plenty of time to see it. If you don't have Netflix, get an account and watch the movie. We'll get into how many spotlights we're going to give this movie at the end, but I did want to talk about what I thought about the film. So first of all, this is a star-studded cast. We have T.I. in the movie, rapper T.I. We have Snoop Dogg, Chris Rock, Lunel, so many others that are featured in this film, and the people that you are happy to see in the movie that you probably didn't know were in it. I didn't want to give myself too many spoilers, so I didn't watch too many previews before the movie came out. I saw Eddie Murphy and was immediately sold. And so I was starstruck almost to see so many of my favorite stars in the movie. But we want to talk about who the movie is about. And of course, it is about Rudy Ray Moore. And it's his story about his rise to fame, his claim to fame, and how he got there. And more than a comedic movie, it's very funny. It has funny parts in it. But more than that, I feel like it's an inspirational tale about how not to take no for an answer. And in this movie, we saw Eddie Murphy playing Rudy Ray Moore. And of course, he fused his own Eddie Murphy flavor in there. So you did see Eddie Murphy, but you also knew that he was telling the tale of Rudy Ray Moore. What's interesting about fame, Hollywood, all of that, is that sometimes you as yourself is just not enough. And that's what this movie really highlighted for me, is that you can bring your A game, you can bring your know-how, your expertise, and sometimes people want to see something that appeals to what they want to be, not necessarily just who you are, but something that brings that zest out for them. And that's why we see rappers and some actresses and actors change their names and their persona because they need to be something that draws people in. And that's what Rudy Ray Moore had to do. He had tried so many things as Rudy Ray Moore. He had tried doing comedy. He had tried singing, his talents with singing, so many different things. And then he realized, I might need to put a persona on this to get people on board. People generally are bored with life. They want to see something that makes them laugh, that makes them talk. And so he decided to get a wig, get a pimp persona, get something that was flashy, something that made people feel empowered and strong and excited. And so he came up with this character of Dolemite. It was is he took from people around him. So there was this local homeless guy that people shooed away all the time, but the guy would say these lines that were catchy and quotable and things that made you think, things that were like, where did you even get that material from? And he took that and incorporated it into this character that he had created to make Dolemite. And so Dolemite came out, and the guy that he had asked to give him a chance a number of times before at the club that he worked for was not on board. But when he saw the audience response to Dolemite, he was immediately sold. And so Dolemite started to make records, and no one wanted to give him a chance because he was risque. And they had even dropped lines in the movie about Bill Cosby, who was one of my favorites from back in the day. And people that would probably have not have been on board with the language and the content that Dolemite was trying to put out. So what he did was got his friends to help him put together records on his own and sold them on their own. They didn't need so much a label to help them get the word out. And they were able to get his material published in an underground way. And people were getting on board. So he had created a following at this point. What I like is that there was a scene where he went to go perform and there was a woman who reminded me of a Jill Scott type. And there was not one joke in the movie made about her persona or her person, basically. She was a bigger woman. She was not someone who the media might deem traditionally beautiful, but there was not one joke made about her in a negative light. And she was embraced for exactly who she was, and I really loved that. Rudy Ray Moore's character was told that she loved that in the movie. So this was just his person. He was generally a nice person, but he knew that putting stuff out there that was risque, that pushed the envelope, was going to get him to the top. So he did this more and more. And one day, sitting at a movie theater watching a movie, he was inspired to make a movie. And of course, at this point, if you have to sell records out of the trunk of your car, you don't really have the resources to make a movie. But what he did was tap into the talents of all of those around him, which reminded me of a local producer, Chicago Outlaw, or Taron Thomas. He is a local producer here in Chicago, and he directed a movie kind of in the same way that Rudy Ray Moore did, by tapping into the talents of those around him, pooling them together, and going at it full force, not taking no for an answer. And it's really an inspirational tale, because there's so many times that we let little things stop us along the way. We let the lack of resources or age or physique stop us. And there were times in the movie where Eddie Murphy's character pointed to the fact that Rudy Ray Moore didn't want to go forward, because he's like, I have a love scene and I've got this belly, I'm an older man now. But he used it in a way that he put a comedic spin on it and was able to put it out there and get the draw that he wanted. And so this was not a work that was accepted back then. Now we hear plenty of vulgar language and things in movies and music that does not bother us, but back then it was frowned upon even more so. And so his movies were not doing well by critics and reviewers. People were putting it down, but he knew that any press was good press. And so he kept driving forward, and he found his tribe. He got the audience that he wanted. And it was just a really great movie. I think there were funny parts, like I said, in it. Again, Lunel was very funny in her role. Eddie had some funny lines in his role. But overall, the movie is really an inspirational tale of how not to take no for an answer, how to keep pushing on, and how to make your dreams come true. Snoop Dogg was in the movie, and he was Snoop Dogg, but I loved him in his role. Chris Rock was in the film. T.I. is a community activist. He's a social justice warrior at this point, on top of being a rapper. And in the movie, he looked like Malcolm X to me, and I found that to be ironic. But he did not come across as T.I. to me at first. It took me a while. I'm like, is that T.I.? I couldn't really tell for the hair and makeup. But once you saw him, you were proud of him in this role. And so there are so many things about this movie that you can take away. I love the fact that I saw that Rudy Ray Moore putting those quotables out there was an inspiration to rappers. And a lot of rappers attribute their success and their inspiration to Rudy Ray Moore. And I also found it ironic that Eddie Murphy had a character in a movie named Jimmy, which is the character that he played in Dreamgirls, which is the role that he did not win the Oscar for, which I feel like knocked him back a bit. He was a little bit downtrodden about it. But you see him in this movie jump right back in and pick up where he left off, and you see why he's a legend. Even Black Dynamite. I wanted to see this movie because Black Dynamite was kind of a blaxploitation film on Dolemite, and Michael Jai White knocked that out of the park. It was hilarious. And so you see so much inspiration in what Rudy Ray Moore did, and I'm glad that they're finally speaking to his legendary status and how he has inspired culture and made cult classics over the years. I give this movie 5 spotlights. I know I've given a couple 5 spotlights in my last few reviews, but this one definitely deserves it. I say check it out. It is on Netflix. If you don't have an account, get an account and watch the movie, and let me know what you think. I'm happy to entertain all of your discussion topics. Please do check out Chicago Bravo on Instagram and Facebook as well as chicagobravo.com. Subscribe to Chicago Bravo on YouTube, and also we'll be discussing this movie on the JP Undiluted podcast. I'll add the link for that later, and let me know what you think, guys. Share your comments respectfully, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks, guys.